Welcome to another edition of Ask the First Selectman. If you have a question you'd like to ask John Zagrodzky, just send it along to us. We'll give you the address in just a moment. We're going to be asking viewer questions of the First Selectman, and he will answer those questions. I have shared the topics with him in advance, but not the specific questions. So let's get going. Today's question comes from an anonymous resident who asks, how can Darien balance the school parents' demands with those of folks who live on fixed incomes?
That's a good question because it's a timeless one, trying to figure out how to balance municipal needs across a variety of constituents in a municipality. A lot of times it's schools versus everybody else, but sometimes it could be parks, or it could be our roads, or it could be investments in certain parts of town where other parts of town don't benefit from that. And we run into this kind of question all the time. I think for folks who are living in town, but maybe whose children are not in schools, I would say the following. One is they may have had children in school at one time or another, and they're still in town after their children have left. And so they may not be benefiting right at this moment, but they did benefit pretty substantially while they were here and while their children were in school. And the other thing I would say is that even though there's a distributed tax burden that everybody pays to support our schools, one of the great selling points of Darien is the high quality schools that we have. And one of the great things about that is that it drives property values in town. And so even though you might be a resident who's paying taxes, and by the way, this is not just residents, this could be businesses as well. They pay a property tax rate that's driven in part by school expenses. But one of the things you benefit from is higher property values. So when the time comes for you to sell your home, because we've done a good job at maintaining our excellent schools, you're going to benefit from that expenditure through a higher value for your property than you would have had we not made those investments. And so I guess I would say we do take these kinds of questions seriously. And I think if you watch our debate processes and the kinds of questions that are posed, not just by other elected officials, particularly the Board of Finance, but by residents themselves, that we have a pretty robust process to make sure that while maintaining these schools and their excellence is expensive, that there's not a lot of excessive spending. And so I think we do actually get to a pretty good balance on that. And that is shown both in the quality of our schools as well as the property values for anybody who owns property in Darien.
If you have a question for the First Selectman, you can just email it to us at darientv79@gmail.com. And your question may be asked on a future show. You can pose your question using your name, or you can ask the question anonymously. So thank you, John, for joining us today on the program. And I would encourage our viewers to stay tuned for the next edition of Ask the First Selectman.